Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Everyone, welcome into the program. Today on the show, we have the one, the only, Mr. Ralph Bond himself, as we are going to be talking about, well, of course, Ralph Bond is our science and tech trends correspondent, and of course, all-around great guy, longtime Computer America contributor. And yeah, we're going to be talking about tons of fun different articles, everything from green energy to lab-printed meat, all that and more. Just, hey, the latest of the latest, and it's always a lot of fun with Ralph. But we'll get to him in just a moment. Everyone, computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, including past shows, future shows, show notes, podcast directory. If you're not listening to us live on IRN, then hey, you can of course catch us wherever podcasts are heard. While you're there, check out the reviews, articles, all that kind of stuff, and of course follow the links to social media. Give us a like, give us a follow, and that would help us a lot. So now, all that being said, morning announcements, why don't we go ahead and jump into today's program? And as I said before, Ralph Bond, you can almost set your clock to it. He is here every second Friday of the month to talk about just fun stories, and hey, it's always a lot of it's always a lot of fun. So everyone, welcome into the program once again, Mr. Ralph Bond. Ralph, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Got lots of crazy, wacky stories for us today. Some of them inspiring, some of them wacky. We'll see.
It's going to be fun. But before that, so yesterday we didn't have a live program, so I wanted to kind of get this out of the way. Happy Veterans Day. And, I was just kind of checking out the so important social media before the show here. And Ralph, one of your posts actually came by. So if you wouldn't mind, I think that everyone has a veteran in their family somewhere. And I came across the post that you posted for your father in World War II.
Oh, great.
Would you mind talking about him real quick?
Oh, sure, of course. And well, I'm delighted you found the post.
And actually, real quick, would you mind if I also showed the photo that you posted with your post?
Oh, please do. Go ahead.
Right,
Go
perfect.
ahead, and I'll explain what's coming. Well, this is lovely. So on the far left is my father, and he's there with the crew of their B-17 Flying Fortress, as they called these planes in the Second World War, and they did bombing runs over Germany, and he's there with the crew. But the most important crew member is in the middle, Weasel, the little dog.
I see that.
Which kept their spirits up. My father was a very gifted mechanic, and his job on the B-17 was to be the master mechanic sergeant. And when they were in active combat, he would also man the top turret machine guns. So if you're familiar with the B-17, you can certainly look it up online, folks, and easily see what the plane was. It was a 4-engine plane, usually had a 10-man crew. I don't know why only 5 of the guys are shown here, but nonetheless, he also, before we entered the war, before the United States entered the Second World War, he was a volunteer mechanic. There were Americans that volunteered to help the Royal Air Force in England, and he went over before we got into the war and was a mechanic working on their Spitfire single-engine fighter planes. Yeah, and probably maybe you've helped with some of the battles that they had before we got into the war. So he had a long career in the Second World War. Yeah. And unfortunately, sad to say, he passed away at age 45 of a terrible heart attack in 1966. And I have his photo album, and he would build models of the planes with me, but he would never, ever talk about the combat. Yeah. And I think that's kind of typical of a lot of these folks. Maybe it was a little PTSD, as we would call it now. But anyway, he was a great guy, and salute to my dad and all of his crewmates and all the men and women who saved us from the Nazi terror. And then all the subsequent veterans before that time and after. God bless them all, and we're certainly glad for your service.
Perfectly said. Yeah. And really, this is a topic that comes up here, actually a surprising amount for the show, because one thing is obviously protect your data, backup, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But digitizing your family photos and backing them up to the cloud. Did you do this? And you have this photo here.
Yes.
Did you have this done, or did you do this yourself?
No, I did it on a scanner, a high-res scanner, actually, when I was still with Intel. Mm-hmm. And the picture itself, Craig, is maybe about 3 inches by 2 inches, a little tiny. And he had a little leather-bound photo album, and there's some amazing photographs in there. Actually, he kind of crazy, hard to imagine. He actually took pictures during combat, during the period of time when the Germans were sending up flak explosives, mid-air explosives to try to damage the planes. And so forth. So he has some pretty amazing pictures. Thinking, Dad, what are you doing taking pictures? Some of this stuff is going on. But anyway, really interesting stuff. And I served in the National Guard in 71 to 77, but I'm not technically a veteran because I didn't serve enough contiguous days in active duty to qualify as a veteran. But I was in the Army. My dad, in those days, maybe some of the younger listeners don't realize, in the Second World War, what we now call the Air Force was the Army Air Force. It's after the Second War that they break it off into being its own, what would you call it, part of the Pentagon, being its own service, the Air Force as we know it today.
Yeah, and really, I just came across that and I was like, that's a really great story. And again, I'm thank you for sharing that with us. The other, one other little World War II tidbit that I always think about whenever I see planes like that. I'm sure that you heard about this, and this is, kind of a fun analogy to kind of troubleshooting with programming and things like that. Whenever planes would come back from, whatever mission that they would do, and they came back and they saw that there were bullet holes, in the plane, and they would always add more armor, more plating in the areas where there were where there were bullet holes to protect it.
Patch them up.
Yeah, but then they were thinking about, obviously the ones that got shot and kept coming and made it back, those are okay. We need to protect the areas where there aren't bullet holes, because those are the ones that aren't making it back. And when they started doing that, more and more planes started to return because they were patching, they're patching the places where it, where it was more crucial, more vital. And it's always, kind of counterintuitive. You think, there are holes there, you got to protect there. No, it's the ones that, didn't make it back. Those are the ones that you have to think about.
And one last little nugget on the B-17 story real quick. We, the Americans, insisted on flying daylight bombing raids over Germany. The British thought we were insane. The British said, we fly at night, come with us at night. It's safer. But the Americans, we just kept throwing planes and people day after day after day. And there was a terrible loss of life in the B-17 bunch. So I'm very, very fortunate my father made it back, because statistically, I think it was something like 3/4 of the crews never came home. They were shot down out of the skies because it was broad daylight, and the escort fighter planes could only go with them so far across the channel. And then because of fuel, they had to go back to England, and the B-17 guys were on their own from thereafter.
It's and I'm sure that veterans, World War II, Vietnam, Iraq War, I mean, all of them have their own stories that are Afghanistan. I'm sure they all have their incredible stories. But hey, we have our own incredible stories. That's the best segue I can do, Ralph. And so as I said before, you are our science and tech trends correspondent. You are in charge of finding things that are sciencey, geeky, maybe things that don't get, I wouldn't say enough. I think people have heard about these stories.
Don't get big mainstream attention.
Yes. But hey, we can always shed a little bit more light onto them. So, Ralph, I think we have enough preamble, and we can go ahead and kind of jump right into story number one.
Yes, this comes from the Guardian newspaper in the United Kingdom. The headline is New Experimental High-Tech Wooden Flooring Can Turn Footsteps into Electricity. If that doesn't get your brain spinning about possibilities, I give up. Here we go. So scientists at the Swiss Federal Laboratories for Materials Science and Technology have developed an experimental energy harvesting device that uses wood with a combination of silicone coating and embedded nanocrystals to generate electricity. Now, the approximately 1 foot square proof of concept test floor module, which is shown in the photograph in the show notes, the scientists created produces enough energy to power LED light bulbs and small electronics. So, of course, again, it's just a prototype and it's very small. What the researchers created is a nano generator based on sandwiching 2 pieces of spruce wood between electrodes. The wood pieces become electrically charged when your step compresses the wood layers together and then separates. This causes something called the triboelectric effect. And this triboelectric effect occurs when electrons can transfer from one object to another, akin to the static electricity produced when you rub a balloon on your hair for a few seconds. We've all done that as kids, right? Imagine if someday, and here's the takeaway from this. I mean, my gosh, stop and think about this. Imagine if someday the floors in our homes, shopping malls, offices, train stations, airports, you name it, could be transformed to generate electricity. I know it's not a trivial thing to pull off because you've got to store this energy. You've got to figure out all the wire. You may have to retrofit floors and stuff. But going forward, maybe high-rise buildings, maybe other things of this nature could be outfit with something like this if they could make it practical in volume. So I love this kind of energy creativity. In all senses of the word. It's one of those situations where you aren't giving up anything because, hey, a floor is a floor and hopefully it looks good being a wood floor, Ralph. But like even just sitting here, doing the show, I'm, maybe bouncing my leg, a little movement like that. Imagine if we could turn every little movement, every little thing that we do into further electricity. I mean, it's all efficiency. It all helps in, very small amounts. So this very cool. And hey, true to your words, I had not heard about the story, but it makes a lot of sense. And like you said, the possibilities, they're endless. They really are. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Just anything flat, anything that you could walk on. Really, really cool stuff. So, story number 2, and this is one where, Ralph, ever since Facebook became Meta, people have been trying to grab the Google searches by throwing metaverse. So we're going to stick with the virtual reality right now, but this is going to get into this whole kind of alternate meta reality, but virtual reality. Let's talk about this.
Yeah, this is great. Comes from digitaltrends.com. And again, friends, we should mention, come out to the website for the show, get what we call the show notes. It'll have the links, pictures, the commentary that I'm giving to you over the air here. Everything's there for you to follow up if you find a story particularly interesting. But with that said, the headline here is Virtual Reality Lets Scientists virtually, of course, shrink down and walk around inside their own cells. How could you resist that? It's just fabulous. Okay, we're going back to the United Kingdom again here. Investigators from the UK's University of Cambridge and 3D image analysis software company Lume, that's Lume VR, have come up with a method that uses virtual reality to allow researchers to walk around inside individual cells, and we'll explain. Okay, it's based on using a virtual reality display headset that covers a user's eyes, combined with handheld motion controls, just like the VR gear used for sophisticated 3D video gaming. And the goal here, Ben, is to help medical researchers better understand some fundamental problems in biology and in the process, learn to develop better treatments. So this is not a game. This is something very serious. For example, with this system, you could take a 2D image of an immune cell from your own blood and transform it into a giant-sized 3D cell. That part blows my mind. You could move around in virtually using, again, the headset and the hand controls that we're all familiar with. The approach uses a technique called super-resolution imaging, which transforms a flat, microscopic image into an explorable 3D one by building up an image one point at a time. And again, I don't profess to fully understand how this works, but pretty cool. With this capability, researchers could do such things as watch how antigen cells trigger immune responses in the body on a hitherto unimaginable scale. So I would love to see this in action. I just think I love medical science advancement stories. You know that from the past. This is something I just can't resist.
It's a little weird to get this idea that you can walk around inside your own cell. I mean, hey, I'm sure that they're going to extrapolate this eventually to walking around in someone's own 3D CAT scans or MRIs. If you can map it, then hey, you can model it. And I know that your time spent at Autodesk, you did a lot of kind of 3D modeling and obviously construction part. But it's a fast evolving kind of area. Yeah, for sure.
Well, and in fact, you're right to bring up the bit about my time with Autodesk. And folks, if you're not familiar with Autodesk, they're the AutoCAD company, but they're much, much more. And they're very involved with construction and architecture design and so forth. And you're right. They used to have programs. Autodesk has programs where you can, as a designer, come up with your basic plan for a building and then transform it into a completely virtual reality, incredibly realistic experience. Put on the headset, put on the hand controls, and move around a structure. It's unbelievable.
I always wonder if, they get all the plans and all the data's put in, and then they render it, and then they're like, oh, hey, that water pipe is sticking out of that wall. Maybe that measurement's
exactly
not right.
Exactly correct. You're right. That's the kind of stuff that this can reveal. Or the customer, the client might say, I like where you're going with this, but can we have that roof line just a little more of this? Okay, no problem. There's a little adjustment, mouse click or two, boom. It's just
there's definitely something about seeing and I'm sure that for scientists, like this is just kind of human nature when you see it in a book. Ralph, one of these I saw the other day, and just a quick tangent and move on to story number 3, but the true size of the continents. And I saw the true size of Africa because when you look at a globe or you look at especially those flat maps, obviously Antarctica looks huge, America looks pretty big, Canada looks massive. And then you get an image like this that shows the true size of Africa. And for ladies and gentlemen just listening to the podcast, they show China, India, United States, Eastern Europe, UK, pretty much everything fits into Africa. And Ralph, I feel like when people read about it in a textbook, when they see pictures on the internet, you don't really visualize it accurately. And I think that's where 3D imaging can come into it.
That's astonishing, Ben. That's cool. But by the way, folks, when you see me looking over this direction, it's because I have 3 monitors. And so my monitor that I've got Ben and his display on over here. Wow, Ben, I'm blown away. That's awesome.
And I guess that's the goal of 3D modeling, is that you see things accurately, not just, whatever way it's kind of quote unquote helpful. So very cool. Love the 3D stuff, and especially for education. I feel like it has a huge future there. So next one is one near and dear to my heart because I love beef. Although Ralph, I'm sure that a lot of people in the United States are feeling this whole effect of the supply chain, kind of disruptions and the price of meat and stuff like that. Well, hopefully everyone has their 3D printer meat set up in their garage.
The bio printer.
You can now, exactly, the bio printer. You can now print some of the best meat in the world. What is this?
This is it keeps on with the 3D theme too. Okay, headline: Scientists create first 3D printed, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correct. I went online and tried to. Wagyu, thank you. Wagyu beef, which is very famous beef from Japan. Okay. This story comes from the Smithsonian Magazine, and we've got the link, of course, and a picture of what they printed. I mean, you look at this picture of this, if you can see this, folks, if you're online, happen to be able to see the image. I'm speechless. It looks exactly like a cut of beef that you would get at the butcher shop, right? Anyway, scientists in Japan successfully 3D printed a cut of Wagyu, is that how you say it?
Wagyu, like a wagyu tail. Wagyu.
Oh, Wagyu, got it. Wagyu beef that looks just like the real thing, and it certainly does. Wagyu beef is an expensive cut prized for its tenderness, flavor, and delicate fat marbling. And the team at Osaka University in Japan used 3-dimensional bioprinting to replicate the cut's specific arrangement of muscle, fat, and blood vessels. Wow. Like traditional 3D printing, bioprinting uses a computer-generated model that deposits layers of material to create a final three-dimensional object. But unlike standard 3D printing methods, which use materials like plastic or metal, 3D bioprinting stacks living cells to build complex structures like blood vessels and muscle tissue. This just makes my brain explode. So this is not the first, however, qualifier here. This is not the first time 3D printed beef has been achieved. What we're talking about is the Wagyu beef. Earlier this year, Ben, we talked about an Israeli company that announced their 3D printed ribeye steak, but lab produced Wagyu meat presented a much more challenging task. So that was a much more difficult thing to pull off.
Right. Yeah. And for like, that's its own documentary that we don't have to get into here. But if you ever want to see how those cows and like this particular marbling, like I'm sure that, a lot of people, they think of steak and, it has the kind of striations. Yeah. Wagyu beef has that kind of flecked, very tiny little flecks of fat all throughout the meat.
Yeah, right.
And it involves giving beer to the cows, giving the cows massages. They live very happy little cow lives until their unfortunate little cow endings. But being able to 3D print. And Ralph, I think that's, it's one thing to 3D print a Honda Civic. No offense to Honda Civics, but it's another thing to 3D print a Bugatti. You know what I mean? Like that, it seems like kind of what they're going for here. They want to print the best of the best so that, that obviously has value. Now, one part that, one little bullet point that you didn't include here was that no one has tasted it, because that's why I was wondering.
Okay. Gotcha. Right.
How does it taste? How does it stack up? They said no one's tasted it. So...
Well, you would think by now they have, because the story is a couple of months old. So hopefully somebody has had a chance to try it out.
Well, yeah, they said right here, more studies are needed before anyone is green lighting, cooking, or eating it.
Makes sense.
But I mean, Ralph, if it's made out of, steak cells, or I should say beef cells and beef muscle tissue and stuff like that, it should be perfectly fine to eat, right?
One would assume.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Very, very, very cool though. And you're right. This picture looks like the real deal. It's
mind blowing.
It really is incredible. So I hope they can do that, because, ladies and gentlemen, if you want, especially one this size, Ralph, that would probably run you about 120 to 180 bucks.
Talk about inflation.
Yeah, it's something. So there you go. Very cool. Story number 3. Story number 4. Collectible drinking water. And this is like I remember you talking about this in a different one a little while ago about, essentially farming water in the desert. But it looks like we're taking this technology again somewhere else.
Yes, exactly. And this is a little self-serving, because this is a local Oregon story, because I live just outside of Portland, Oregon. And it has to do with one of our Native American tribes, the Warm Springs tribe. But the headline is Warm Springs Tribe collects drinking water from the air with solar-powered panels. And as Ben correctly points out, earlier this year, we talked about another company, another technology, another application. I think it was in the Middle East, where they're doing the same kind of thing. But I just think this is so intriiguing.
Ralph, it must have worked. I mean, with all the rain you're getting, it must have worked.
Yeah, maybe the rain thought, wait a minute, we're offended. You're pulling it out of the air. We're going to have to come back on and dump it. We've been having a deluge here in the last 24 hours, folks. That's what Ben and I are talking about. Anyway, it comes from the Portland Tribune newspaper. And here we go. Oregon's Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs have teamed up with Source Global, a company that has created a remarkable solar-powered water collecting system to help combat chronic water shortages. It's all based on the use of Source Global's hydro panel, which we first talked about back in July, by the way. So here's how the system, this is sort of a refresh. Here's how the system, which looks like an ordinary solar panel from the outside, how this thing works. So solar energy provides all the power needed to run the panel system. Fans draw in ambient air and push it through a water absorbing material that traps water vapor from the air. And this, folks, even works in the desert, which still blows my mind. The water vapor is extracted and passively condenses into liquid that is collected in a storage tank, all part of the same unit. Minerals are then added to make perfect drinking water. So earlier this year, they turned on an array of 200 panels at the Warm Springs Reservation that generates 150 gallons of water a day. And each of the 200 solar panels costs $2,000 each. But a private donor, thank goodness, paid $400,000 for the original installation. The next big step for the tribe is to expand this array so it produces 750 gallons of water a day and ultimately provides 6,000 gallons of water storage for the Warm Springs Reservation community. So these folks live in some remote, out there territory in this state. And this is just a blessing for them because there's more details in the backstory of this where they had to truck water in and it was very expensive and not convenient. But now you could have these panels sprinkled throughout the reservation, providing on-site water for the tribe members. So I just love this story. I think it's great.
Yeah, it's always an area that I always want to learn a little bit more about, which is, kind of Native American communities where, they have their own sovereign land that, and, the whole justice thing aside, our infrastructure doesn't really tie in with their infrastructure. They have their own land. They do, they kind of have jurisdiction. And a lot of that means that they don't have power generation, water generation, sewage, that kind of thing. So I think something like this that just kind of brings, like you said, water on site, that is incredible. And especially just pulling it out of thin air. That's exactly a huge boon to a lot of people. Very, very cool.
Agree.
Hey, that's where technology really shines, is just providing the basics very, very conveniently. Right. Now, this next one, and I think that a lot of people have had their own bouts of depression. It's a horrible, horrible illness that, just kind of makes everything feel very gray, very muted. I think a lot of people confuse depression with sadness, and no, depression is depression is more the lack of emotion than it is the abundance of sad emotions. So depression is a very, very tricky thing because you can't just say, hey, be better, feel, be happier. Not quite how it works. But hey, looks like brain implants. Ralph, we're getting closer to that. Well, just, tune your happy chip. Okay. I don't know where the story's going, but story number 5 looks very interesting.
It is very interesting. And a preface to it, it's really, this story happens to apply to people with severe, chronic, years deep depression. Okay. Right. Which is all the more reason why to celebrate, because this offers potentially some wonderful hope. Comes from Science News headline: an experimental custom brain implant lifted a woman's severe depression. So we're talking about early stages of the exploration of this technology. So here we go. Recently, researchers at the University of California, San Francisco, implanted temporary thin wire electrodes into the brain of a 36-year-old woman who had suffered from severe depression for years. Oh boy. These electrodes allowed researchers to monitor the brain activity that corresponded to the woman's depression symptoms. This gets more and more interesting. In this woman's individual case, a particular sign emerged: a fast brain wave called a gamma wave in her amygdala, a brain structure known to be involved with emotions. With this biomarker identified, the researchers then figured out where to stimulate the brain to interrupt her distressing depression symptoms. Holy smokes. When researchers applied tiny jolts of electrical current to this region of her brain, her mood improved. Based on the success of this initial experiment, surgeons then implanted a more permanent experimental device into her brain this past June. Scientists then programmed the implanted device to detect when gamma signals were high in her amygdala and respond with a tiny electrical jolt. On average, she got 300 jolts a day to stave off depression. The stimulation was calibrated, however, so she didn't feel any of the hundreds of electrical zaps, thank goodness. And she said that they even left her feeling a little more energetic. So holy smokes, the potential here is so, oh my gosh, think about so many people with severe depression, people maybe who are hospitalized or institutionalized because of extremes. Maybe there's some hope here.
Yeah, we are certainly getting to the point, and I guess a big part of this one is the treatment. It's not just get a chip and you're done. It's this treatment is very personalized. They mapped out the brain, they mapped out the pathway, and they interrupted her particular pathway.
Good point.
I hope that last line was a bit of her keeping her sense of humor, saying it left her more energetic because obviously energy being put right into her brain. Yeah, and ladies and gentlemen, I really like that you included that. She didn't feel any of them because it's not just shock therapy to make her feel better.
No, it's not. Good point. It's not that at all. No.
Yeah, no, it's just breaking that little pathway just to stop the bad thoughts before they even happen, or stop the bad feelings before they even happen. So very, very cool. And yeah, there's hope, Ralph, that we are going to really figure out this whole human body, human brain thing, and just a step in the right direction. Yeah, definitely. So story number 6, and having just bought cereal last night on a grocery trip, I can throw that thing pretty far. Didn't have to, but I don't think I can throw it to Jupiter. What's story number 6?
Hot Jupiters.
Yes.
Hey, this is another story I picked up from the United Kingdom, from the UK's Daily Mail newspaper. The headline is basically cereal box size satellite. Actually, it's a family size cereal box, not a teeny one. So cereal box size satellite going to space to explore hot Jupiters, and we'll explain here. So here's the scoop. In fact, the great picture here, you can see this device kind of looks like a desktop computer laying on its side to me. So here we go. A $4 million NASA satellite, about the size of a jumbo or family-sized box of cereal, was launched into space back in September. The mission of this groundbreaking effort is to look at the physics of distant exoplanets known as hot Jupiters, including the hottest planet to date ever found. An exoplanet, by the way, is a planet outside of our solar system. So hot Jupiters are a class of giant gaseous exoplanets that orbit close to their stars. And the high surface atmosphere temperatures that result gave them the nickname hot Jupiters. And the tiny box-shaped satellite, which is called the Colorado Ultraviolet Transit Experiment, that's a warm and cuddly
rolls
name.
Off the tongue. Yeah.
It does. Is the first small box-shaped satellite mission funded by NASA. So fun stuff. Pretty bizarre to think about, outside of our solar system. That's really cool.
Yeah. And let's see. So I don't see. I wanted to see how hot the hottest planet was, Ralph. And
what is that?
The short answer is 7,800 degrees Fahrenheit is the surface temperature of that planet. And Ralph, I'll be honest with you. I was like, I want to quantify that because I feel like 7,800, it's a number people don't really have anything to associate that with. So I typed in how hot is 7,800 degrees Fahrenheit. And Ralph, if I'm being honest with you, I got a bunch of search results for John Bon Jovi and his 7,800 Fahrenheit remastered 1985. So it's pretty good. I don't know how hot it is, but the song's pretty good.
That's
still
great.
Good stuff. And hey, along with this, to put one more thing onto everyone else's radar, or I should say satellite imaging, the super telescope, Ralph. What is that? That telescope that's going up like next year or next month, I should say.
Yeah, it's like super Hubble.
Large telescope.
Oh, you've got me.
And the James Webb Space Telescope is scheduled to go up in December. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're looking for something really fun, or just looking forward to something next year, the answer is the James Webb, because it is, Ralph, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's like 100 times more sensitive.
Phenomenal. You're
than
right.
The Hubble telescope. It's going to send back incredible images, and I can't wait for
Brave
that as
new
well.
world.
Definitely. So now that's that story number 7. We can go ahead and move on to this one.
Yes, and this is a good example of the kind of range of stories that I get my head into. Some are really exotic stuff, like our hot Jupiter story. This one brings it back down to earth for sure. So the headline here is Canon cameras releases world's first video virtual reality interchangeable lens for 35 millimeter cameras. Now, to be honest, it's for their 35 millimeter camera form factor body cameras, not everybody's.
I've never seen anything like this.
Oh, isn't that wild? This comes from EXT Daily Up. And we've got the link, we've got the photo. You really have to see the image of this thing, which Ben is showing on the screen right now. And there's even a video. And the key here, folks, is that there have been dedicated VR capture camera solutions. What we're talking about here is a professional photographer could have their very advanced camera body and buy this lens and still use other lenses with that camera body. That's the kind of cool breakthrough. But I digress. Let's get into the story. So virtual reality videos are video recordings where a view in every direction is recorded at the same time. And to date, there have been a number of dedicated single-purpose 3D virtual reality video capture devices, such as Samsung's 360 round VR camera, which sells for $10,499. Single-purpose camera. Recently, Canon announced the world's first interchangeable dual fisheye lens for virtual reality video capture, designed to be used with one of their high-end, handheld 35 millimeter type camera bodies. Now, the lens is priced at just $1 under $2,000, okay, so $19.99. And available by the end of this year, the new Canon 3D VR lens can capture stereoscopic 3D 180-degree virtual reality videos in ultra-high definition and is designed to be used with Canon's EOS R5 camera body, which itself sells for $3,800. But you take the $2,000 and $3,000, it's still way less than many of these dedicated VR cameras, okay? The new lens incorporates twin fisheye lenses with two separate optical systems, each with an ultra-wide field of view for optimal image capture in virtual reality mode. And sophisticated technology built into the new lens makes it possible to integrate the input from the two fisheye lenses and create a single ultra-high resolution video file up to 8K in resolution. And of course, you know this, Ben, 8K resolution refers to an image or display with a width of approximately 8,000 pixels. So, wow. I mean, again, if you're a professional photographer, you're into this kind of, or you're a very well-funded hobbyist, this could be for you. Because again, you're not spending $10,000 for a dedicated single purpose thing. You've got a combination of a little under $6,000, I suppose, if you get the camera body plus this lens. But you can put other lenses on the camera body. So that's the thing I thought was so cool about this innovation.
It's certainly getting there, and something I wanted to kind of look at. So 8K is, to a lot of people, I think, overkill. They think, I have a 4K TV and I barely have 4K content, so 8K is just being ridiculous. The fun fact about VR is that 8K is about when you stop seeing pixels, because Ralph, the monitor for virtual reality, it's right up against your eyes. The headsets are mounted on your head. So 8K is kind of like the sweet spot where you stop seeing that pixelation and you start to get a little bit more immersive. So to be able to do that on a traditional camera, and I think that's the really cool part that you have here, is that a traditional camera can shoot this kind of thing, is really cool. It's and like I said, nothing I've ever seen before. It looks goofy. It looks like someone tried to turn a Canon camera into a robot, but
it does.
But it works.
That's
it works.
So funny.
And the video is very, very cool. So definitely check that one out.
Check out the video. Look, do the links from the show notes, folks, and check out the video. It's very, very fun.
For sure. So that's story number 7. Story number 8, if you're keeping track, let's check out a laser weapon, because, hey, technology and weapons, it goes together so well. What's up with this?
Again, an example of the wild range of what I troll for. Stuff catches my eye from all over the spectrum of craziness. This one comes from Popular Mechanics. So the headline here is basically the Navy's next laser weapon is basically a real-life ray gun. How about that, huh? The U.S. Office of Naval Research recently ordered a, quote, compact, portable laser weapon system. The Navy will use the weapon, known as the Counter Unmanned Air Systems High Energy Laser Weapon System, to shoot down drones. Now, that's what they're saying its basic purpose is, which is interesting in its own right. So there's an outfit called MZA Associates, based in Albuquerque, New Mexico, will design the laser gun according to the $18.7 million contract, again, from the U.S. Office of Naval Research. Lasers are very effective against drones. no surprise. For example, a focused beam of light can quickly heat up a drone's exterior, inducing structural failure and causing it to crash, basically melting the puppy out of the sky. But if this laser gun is truly portable and compact, this was my personal commentary added in here. If this thing's truly portable and compact, other targets are possible. Yeeks. So this could be pretty scary and interesting at the same time.
And it really reminded me of this one here. I think I can pull it up here real quick, and hopefully it's...
Yeah, I'm looking over to see what you got.
So, hey, it's
Brian Williams. He's leaving NBC.
Yeah. Is he?
Oh,
really?
yes.
I know that.
Yeah, he's leaving MSNBC and NBC, yeah.
Oh, well, there you go. But
he hasn't announced what he's going to do, but I'm sorry, I digress.
No problem. The video, and this is actually Lockheed Martin back in 2014 showing off their laser gun destroying a truck off in a platform way back here. And I even recall another one, Ralph, that was mounted onto an overhead drone, and the laser could disable a truck by like firing the laser into the engine compartment and essentially blowing up the engine with a laser.
Good. There you go.
It's been a thing for a couple of years, but to know that they want handheld lasers, Ralph, I wish that they worked on warp systems before they jumped straight to phasers, but hey, baby steps. We'll get there one day.
Baby steps is right. Yes, like a phaser.
We already have Space Force, so now we just need the ships to go along with the Space Force. But still, I can see why you were drawn to this. I hope that the research means that we can, do more non-lethal stuff. But hey, the military's going to do what the military's going to do. Now, there you go. Very, very cool, though. Lasers. Always love hearing about lasers. It's kind of like magnets, Ralph. They're magical and so not magical at the same time. Story number 9. And I about time you got to the medical stuff, because you always do.
Yeah. And before we jump into this story, you said magnets. Yes. And I've got to share something with the audience. This is holiday lights for your outside of your house, critical information that may help you.
No, please.
So if you put Christmas lights up on your hopefully steel gutters, not aluminum, but steel gutters, which most of the gutters are, and you're tired of fussing with the hooks and the lights are all kind of droopy and just it's not satisfying. This year, I'm converting to magnetic Christmas light holders. And you can get them on Amazon. Just Google search on Amazon magnetic Christmas light holders. And you can get these packages of these little holders that have pretty strong magnets on each thing. You put the light in, you thread your light cords through holders. You can have the light either down or sideways. There you go. That's what I got.
Yeah.
And friends, it's working for me. And it might give you less of a heartburn and heart pain and give you a nice, tidy military lineup of lights on your gutters.
Do you just kind of like wind them over your head like a lasso and throw them up there and hope they stick? Or do you still have to get up on the ladder?
I wish it was that easy. No, it's not quite that easy. I still have a ladder. And one thing, you raise a good point. My wife helps by holding the bundle of lights so the weight is not pulling down. Because if you allow a weight, it'll just... take them all down in one shot. But if you have a team, you can put them up and it's so much cleaner and faster. So there's your cool. Christmas technology tip.
No. Perfect advice, I'm sure, for a lot of people who actually do fuss with hooks. Yes. I have never heard about those, Ralph. So, hey, informing us in so many ways. Yep. Okay. So story number 9.
Now, yes, story number 9 comes from Stat News, STAT news.com. I'd never covered these guys before, but this is a great story. Scientists engineer nasal cartridge cells to repair arthritic knees. What? I love it. I love it. Okay, here we go. When it comes to arthritis of the knee, cartilage that should cushion the bones erodes, leaving people in pain. I think anybody who suffers from this knows exactly what we're talking about. Joint replacement gets people moving again, but their implants must eventually be replaced. Now, a new possible permanent solution might be found in your nose. A team of biomedicine researchers from the University of Basel in Switzerland recently announced that they were able to bioengineer nasal cells that form cartilage in your nose, and then implant them in the knees of 2 patients to grow new cartilage. What? For 15 years, wait a minute, let that sink in. For 15 years, the team has been studying 3-dimensional culture systems for cells to understand how tissues develop, how to control tissue formation, and how to turn tissues generated in the lab into possible grafts for tissue repair. After a decade and a half of work, the team was able to generate human-engineered nasal cartridge tissue in a 3-dimensional size and shape with viable functional properties to repair arthritic knees. Ultra wow.
Definitely something that I guess before, I'm not completely up to date. I think it was titanium, right? That was the material that was kind of preferred.
Yeah.
Very expensive. And of course, it would eventually wear away the bones, like the article mentioned. Ralph, I'm a little embarrassed to say it, but I'm surprised they didn't come up with a headline of head, shoulders, knees, and nose. But maybe next time. Maybe next time.
That's something to think about.
Yes.
And here's the other thing, the other spin-off on this too, is I'm thinking to myself, well, wait a minute, I'm beginning to experience, I think, unfortunately, early stages of arthritis in my right hand. It's, a little soreness. I had a terrible dog walking accident earlier this year, and this finger was broken, and this finger here was dislocated, blah, blah, blah. This guy's now deformed. Anyway, point being is, if they can replace the cartilage in the knees, using the nasal cells, maybe they can do that for people, for your hands. And boy, would that be a blessing. Again, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know if that corresponds, if they make the transition to your fingers. If they can do the knees, can they do the fingers? This is my point. So something to think about.
I'm not a doctor, but I have no problem giving out unsolicited and completely uninformed advice. I would say that it is applicable. I would say that the reason that they focus on knees, Ralph, is that one, because it's kind of like one of the largest sections of cartilage in the body. Yeah. Like it's one of the most complex. And also, I mean, Ralph, like I feel you for your finger, and I hope that they fix it, or, someone comes up with a way to really help with that. But when someone's knee is out, they can't walk. It's a matter of quality of life, that kind of thing.
Exactly right.
All of that being said, Ralph, I can't imagine there's a reason why they wouldn't be able to fix someone's finger cartilage, elbow cartilage, knee cartilage, shoulder cartilage.
Shoulder, exactly.
All of that with the same thing. And like you really highlighted there, 15 years developing how to do this, and it all comes together to hopefully be a solution to a lot of people's pain.
Well, and let's stress again that tail end comment. They engineered this nasal cartilage tissue in a 3-dimensional size and shape with so in other words, it's kind of like made for it. It's not just inject some cells and sit back and wait and hope for the best. No, they cultured these things. They created this culture, or pardon me, this tissue in the shape and size that's appropriate, and then got it into the knee. So wow. Yep. No wonder it took 15 years.
A lot of work, and hopefully, again, they get it working for a lot of people, because professional athletes alone, I think, would fund this research for years and years to come. So very cool story. Story number 10, though, we're going to try to get through this story and maybe one or two more, Ralph, and then we're going to have our little discussion. But we can go ahead and move on to MIT, which always does amazing research.
Sure. And like Ben's alluding to, if we don't get through all the stories, just get the show notes and follow up and go from there. So MIT develops an artificial intelligence-based robot arm that can find and retrieve lost items. This actually comes from an MIT news release itself. So here we go. There's some great pictures here. Oh, there's a video too, which you're playing. Thanks, Ben. Researchers at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, aka MIT, have created a robot arm system that can sift through a pile of objects and find a specific target. The system, called R-Fusion, is a robotic arm with a camera and radio frequency antenna attached to its gripper. It combines signals from a radio frequency antenna with visual input from the camera to locate and retrieve an item, even if the item is buried under a pile of random objects and completely out of view, meaning the target is completely out of view. The R-Fusion prototype robotic arm relies on radio frequency ID tags, a very common item, by the way, which are cheap, don't require batteries, and can be stuck to an item and then bounce back or reflect signals sent by the antenna. So that's how it's finding the target. Because RF signals can travel through most surfaces, the R-Fusion robotic arm can quickly locate a tagged item within a pile, such as a mound of dirty laundry that may be obscuring the target item, which MIT team actually did to demonstrate the system. Now, using artificial intelligence-based machine learning, the robotic arm automatically zeroes in on the object's exact location, removes any items out of the way on top of it, grabs the object in question, and then verifies that it picked up the right thing. The camera, antenna, robotic arm, and artificial intelligence system are fully integrated. So MIT's R-Fusion robotic arm can work in any environment without requiring a special setup. So right away, you think about any industry, Amazon warehouse sorting, go on and on and on, where you might have RF, the little ID tags on the object in question, and you need to find it. And you could have this robotic arm or a series of these robotic arms going through and pulling out the objects that they're looking for. So the possibilities here are pretty interesting. Or maybe a large pharmaceutical supply thing where the robotic arm could go down and using this technology grab and find the things that they're looking for. To me, there's just a lot of potential commercial applications for something like this, in my opinion.
Yep, the video clearly shows something like a grocery store.
Oh, yeah.
Where being able to do something like that, or
right. And manufacturing there. Yep.
Yeah. Kind of where I was, kind of taking it in my head, which was let's say mechanics. Clearly you need a certain kind of wrench, let's say, in the bottom of a toolbox, and your little robotic arm buddy will be able to grab the exact wrench that's buried in all the other wrenches and be able to hand it to you. Little things like that. Yeah. That's Ralph, that humans just kind of do. We just kind of see things, identify, and we
take for granted.
Yeah, but now robots are learning to do the same without destroying everything in between. Yeah. And I guess it takes a lot of work. So good on MIT for doing that. Ralph, I looked through the rest of the stories, and they're all great, but I wanted to move on to story number 12 because, much like you, I have a soft spot for infrastructure and new materials, and especially cement and concrete. I mean, it's Ralph, whenever I think about the weird stories that you bring on the show, one of the first ones is always like self-healing concrete and stuff like that.
Yes, that kind of stuff. Yes.
Yeah, it comes to me. So maybe story number 12 will be yet another one of those.
All right, here we go. It comes from scitechdaily.com, based on a Northwestern University announcement. New smart cement invented for building more durable roads and cities and structures and so on. There's, of course, the link and the picture and so forth. By 2050, the United Nations predicts 2/3 of the world's population will be concentrated in cities, and the demand for cement is expected to skyrocket. In addition to exploding demand for cement, the cost of repairing and or replacing fractured cement in existing roads and building foundations presents a serious challenge. By introducing graphene nanoplatelets into ordinary cement, Northwestern University researchers have created a much more fracture-resistant and highly functional cement. Until now, little was known about how adding graphene nanoplatelets to concrete might impact fracture reduction. Time out. Before we go on, we need to do a couple of definitions. So graphene, and Ben, you know this already, but graphene is a physical form of carbon consisting of a single layer of atoms arranged in a two-dimensional honeycomb lattice nanostructure, and graphene nanoplatelet aggregates are aggregates of submicron platelets with a diameter of less than 2 microns, that's less than 2 millionths of a meter, and a thickness of a few nanometers, that's a few billionths of a meter. So with that said, in addition to significantly improving fracture resistance, adding a small amount of graphene nanoplatelets to cement also improved water transport properties and water penetration resistance, very important for foundations. The goal of the Northwestern University team is to provide the world with a new form of lighter, higher performing cement that will reduce its overall carbon footprint by dramatically reducing the need for maintenance repairs and or demolition of faulty concrete and the disposal thereof and so on. So love this one.
I am kind of curious as to the price of graphene nanoplatelets, and I'm looking here. Research grade platelets are $65 to $90 per kilogram, where you can buy less for gram quantities. Ralph, I'm the reason I kind of bring that up is because graphene.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Ralph, it wouldn't be a good show if you don't have at least one graphene story that promises to revolutionize batteries and medicine and so on and so forth.
And everything else, yes.
Platelets, though, I've never heard that term before until you just brought it up here. It looks like those are actually pretty cheap because they don't have to be long like, graphene nanofibers or nanotubes have to be.
Right.
They can be very small, so hopefully they can be produced much more easily, which means this might actually be, kind of feasible. But still, fracture resistance. I'm sure that a lot of people are drooling at that idea.
Absolutely. Oh, think about we talk about the infrastructure bill being passed and many roads having to be repaired or replaced, or bridges where concrete things are falling down. Oh, Lord, if we could repair and or replace or rebuild new with this kind of technology, we might have something that's going to last much, much better.
Definitely. It's really incredible. And even just, the lady showing the two examples of what I assume to be, the tested one and the other one with the graphene platelets. And obviously the one with the platelets looks much newer. So yeah, it's very incredible stuff. And just much like your story number one with the floor generating electricity, just changing the fundamental parts of our ecosystem or society or whatever. Hey, changing cement, that's a big deal. And that could have big implications. So yep, Ralph, I think that's about all the time we're going to have for stories today. So everyone's stories 11, 13, and 14, all, great stories. You can definitely check them out and you can see them all there. But we're going to kind of deviate a little bit to a bit of a different topic, Ralph, and that's what I talked to you about earlier, today before the show. And ladies and gentlemen, Computer America, been on the air for 31 years. We loved every minute of it. But hey, this is a little bit of a turning of a page and hopefully a, part of what makes Computer America so great is that not that we've been on the air for 31 years, it's that we cover a topic that it's always changing and it's just technology gets better, more interesting, and to our benefit, it's become a huge part of everyone's lives. And we hope that with a bit of a change, a little bit of a shakeup here on the show, we can be in more aspects of your life and, just really change that a little bit with shorter segments, different kinds of segments, more podcasts, more YouTube videos, shorter segments, things that are 10, 15, 20 minutes long. Ralph is still going to be here. All of our other correspondents are still going to be here. We're still going to do headline news. We're still going to have interviews from the companies that you want to hear from. We're still going to have the website. We're still going to do product reviews and articles and show notes. We're going to do everything that we've always done. We're going to change the format. And it's been quite a while, when Computer America first started, Ralph, way back when with Craig, it was a once a week 3-hour show. Yep. And that eventually turned into a 2-hour segment when it launched down in South Florida. It was a 2-hour segment, 10 p.m. to midnight. Monday through Friday, and that was shortened to 1 hour. And hey, it's time for another change, and we're fully embracing this idea of podcast entertainment on the go, more bite-sized, consumable stories and articles and all that kind of thing. So Ralph, I can't think of anyone better to be on the show when I announce this, but ladies and gentlemen, if you catch us on IRN has been very good to us, and we thank them for everything that they've done. Definitely continue to check out their programming. Computer America is going to be, as always, computeramerica.com, and that's where you'll find what we do the latest. And the podcast is, hey, we're definitely doubling down on YouTube and podcast as well, Ralph. So, looking forward to continuing to do what we do, and of course having you and everyone else here on the show. So, just want to let everyone know that. And I know that when I was talking about this, Ralph, with you and everyone that I've brought this up to, they're excited. I mean, most importantly, I'm excited, but they're all excited because you were throwing out a couple of ideas, and the more that you kind of talk about it, think about it, and realize what it could mean for the show and interviews, and the types of guests and how many guests we can have on the program, it's it's going to be a really good turn, and I'm looking forward to it. So,
Oh, me too.
yeah, it's and Ralph, I know that you've been there constantly and consistently for a number of years, and we're looking for many more years. Obviously, you still have everything that you're doing with Mark Mason and WKEX out there in Portland, Oregon. But hey, what your segment becomes, that's something that you and I should definitely discuss. If that becomes segments that, ladies and gentlemen, you could be getting daily, Ralph, for all I know. Depending on how we can work this out. Yeah, hey, it's going to be fun, and it's always going to be good. We certainly hope. So everyone, have a great day. Thank you once again, IRN, for helping us out and for hosting us. And everyone, computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, including the show notes. Everyone, also in the show notes for today, all the articles that we talked about, as well as Ralph Bond's own website, will include a link to there as well, where you can see everything Ralph does. So until next time, everyone, we'll be back Monday, just in a little bit of a different format. If you want to find out more, head on over to our site. And Ralph, I hope you have a great weekend as well.
Hey, you too, buddy. Looking forward to the future.
All right. Yep. Us too. So everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. See you Monday, everyone. Bye-bye.